and today the topic given to me is issues in outward supplies in GSTR 9 as well as 9C. So it is really always a privilege for me to speak with CGPI, and I am seeing that since inception, this association is doing wonderful job. And I still remember that first video recorded by CGPI on some technical topic was me only. So she came to my office, and then he has recorded one video, and which was then uploaded on the site. So now I will not take much time. I'm already delayed the session due to some technical issue. Still, it is not fully resolved, but due to the technical knowledge of Ranjan Bhai, at least I am able to communicate with you. So, Nitin Bhai, next slide.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, whenever we are coming to GST, सो ऑलवेज एक ही चीज मुझे याद आती है, आपने देखा होगा पिक्चर भी दामिनी. सो नेक्स्ट, नितिन भाई नेक्स्ट, एंड देन तो एक ही चीज आती है दामिनी में, डायलॉग था शनि देवल का, तारीख पे तारीख, तारीख पे तारीख, तारीख पे तारीख. So that what we are also seeing as far as the annual return and audit is concerned. So if you see that for the financial year 17-18, that is period July 17 to March 18, it was extended for 6 time, and then finally they said no further extension, and it was 31st January 2020. But when I'm coming to 2018-19, next slide. So now the due date from 31st December 2019, now it is 30th September 2020. So I hope that this will be the final date, but not sure. But as of today, 2018-19 is the final date. And today I am restricting my presentation only in respect of GST audit of 2018-19 only, because each year is a separate year, and whatever feelers I am getting that for the financial year 2019-20, they are going to come out with a different form, different requirement. So no use in discussing that because we don't know what is going to come. So next slide, Nitin bhai. So first annual return introduction, I am just seeing that the person who is required to file is the regular GST registered person. Composition dealer is required to file GSTR 9A, and e-commerce operator is required to file GSTR 9B. And the person who are not required to file is that input service distributor, casual taxable person, non-resident taxable person, person required to be a TDS and TCS, then Department of Central Government, State Government, and local authorities whose books of account are subject to audit by the Controller General of Audit or an auditor appointed or auditing by the accounts of the LA, and then supplying OIDR services from outside India to India. As per notification 30/2019, these are the class of people who are not required to file any annual return. Next. Then they have given late fees of rupees 100 per day, maximum to 0.25% of turnover in a state, each under CGST and SGST. So effectively it will be 200 per day or 0.5% of the turnover in the state. And you will able to file your GSTR 9 only and only when GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B for up to the March 2019 has been filed before, unless if it is not filed, you are not able to file your GSTR 9. Next. So currently the system auto-populates the data based on GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B to the extent possible, which the SSC can edit. And however, you can edit the field, and if your data varies more than or less than 20% of whatever data has been there in GSTR 1 and 3B, then it will be highlighted in red color. This is only for reference and drawing your attention. It is not the showstopper. You can still go on. Next. This is my next.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So now annual return for e-commerce operator also has been given in section 15 to 52.5. Read with rule 80 sub rule 2 So I'm not going into in detail of that. The due date is same, so it is also being extended. So next, the next is they have given option to file annual return for the financial year 17-18 and 18-19 both. Next, for the SSCs who are having turnover below rupees 2 crore, and if it is your turnover is below 2 crore, it is deemed to be filed before the due date. So it means what is going to happen is if you are not filing your GSTR 9 on the due date, suppose the due date for 18-19 is 30th September, then whatever data available with the system in GSTR 1 and 3B, that will pick up that data and it will automatically filed on the system your GSTR 9. Next, Nitin bhai. So due to this deeming fiction, it is deemed that return will be filed as if the SSC have made any error, any mistake in filing GSTR 1, GSTR 3B, the same will go in your GSTR 9, that is your annual return, and you will not get any opportunity of correcting your mistake. We have seen in the past that the data what is there in our GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, two return what we are filing, the data of these two are not matching. I'm not saying in all the month, but maybe in some month the data 1 and 3B are not matching. So if you are filing wrong return, then all the repercussion, interest, penalty, everything will be applicable to you. Nitin, by next. So, said registered person have not filed annual return, then portal will not allow to file the same after the due date. That's what I said. Ki it is automatically it will file. So that's why it will not allow you to further file after the due date. In case your turnover is less than 2 crore rupees. Next. Now coming to GST audit, I'm just giving the brief introduction before going further because I hope this is not being covered. So the who is required to undergo GST audit, it is given in section 35(5). It says that every registered person, so who is required to file get audit is should be registered person and whose turnover. So again, what is the meaning of turnover? Is still disturbing me even after 3 years of introduction. We all maybe a chartered accountant or practicing in GST or maybe in the finance field or accounting. So we all know what is generally turnover means. But once we come to any law, so turnover may be defined by the law in his own way. And I have found out the word terminology turnover in entire GST law, nowhere it has been defined. Neither in act, nor in rules, nor in circular, nor in press release, whatever you say, turnover has not been defined. And still, section is saying turnover. So, how to calculate turnover is again a big question mark. But I will still go forward, will not stick here. So, this I'm just bringing to your notice that the turnover which is given in the act has not been defined. It has to be during the financial year, exceeds the prescribed limit, shall get his accounts audited by a chartered accountant or a cost accountant, and shall submit a copy of the audited annual accounts and reconciliation statement under subsection 2 of section 44. So I'm not going into detail, and then form they will prescribe. Further, that has been given under the GST rules. If I go to rule 80 sub rule 3, it says that every registered person whose aggregate turnover, here the word aggregate turnover has been defined in the law. But once I go to section, it's talk only about turnover, not about the aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover they have given in the rule itself. So again, there is an anomaly as far as the act and as far as the rule is concerned. So again, we'll go by the intention of the government that they want to mean aggregate turnover even in section 35(5), but the word aggregate was missing there. So I will proceed on the basis of aggregate turnover only in entire my discussion. during a financial year exceed rupees 2 crore. So you will say what is 2 crore? Now it has been extended. So at still it is 2 crore. Only by way of notification they said 5 crore. So shall get his accounts audited as specified in subsection 5 of section 35 and shall furnish a copy of audited annual accounts and a reconciliation statement duly certified in GSTR 9C electronically through a common portal. Next. So now the turnover limit, whenever I am saying turnover, it has to be read as aggregate turnover. So if your aggregate turnover is less than 2 crore rupees, then GSTR 9 is optional and 9C is not applicable for the year 1890. If your turnover is between 2 crore to 5 crore, then GSTR 9 is mandatory to file, but 9C is not applicable. And more than 5 crore, then it is mandatory to file GSTR 9 as well as 9C both. Nitin bhai, next.
Should I? Sir?
Next, then they have issued a press release. No. Before that, Nitin
Yeah.
bhai.
Is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then they have issued one press release dated 3rd July 2019, and they have clarified in case of multiple registration how to calculate that 2 crore or limit of 5 crore as the case may be. So they said that in case of multiple registration, what you have to see is turnover, aggregate turnover across India. So if you have a turnover of suppose 1.5 crore in one state and 1 crore in another state, so total turnover more than 2.2 crore, it is in relevant in context of 1718 that press release. And that time the limit was 2 crore. So in nutshell, if I read this, interpret this press release and the law has been given, if go by the definition of aggregate turnover also, what you have to see is the aggregate turnover across India. So if suppose you are having a registration at 11 states in India, 10 state you are having a turnover of 60 lakh each. So your aggregate turnover becomes 6 crore. And in one state your turnover is nil, absolutely zero, no turnover at all. In that case also you are required to get GST audit report for all your 11 state, including the state where you have nil turnover. So I hope I am clear on this. Next, Nitin bhai. Next slide. Yeah. So now they have defined aggregate turnover in section 2 subsection 6, which says that means the aggregate value, you just keep this in mind, aggregate value of all taxable supplies, excluding the value of inward supplies on which tax is payable by a person on a reverse charge basis, exempt supplies, export of goods or services, or both, an interstate supply of a person having the same PAN number to be computed on all India basis, but exclude CGST, SGST, UTGST, or IGST and cess. So, nutshell, your taxable turnover plus your exempt turnover plus your export, that is zero rated supply, put all together across India of all GST registration. If it is exceeding 5 crore, then you are required to get your accounts audited. And how to calculate that aggregate turnover? It is aggregate value. Now, what is value? Again, a big question mark. Value again has been given in section 15 of the CGST Act. Whenever I am referring to Act, I am referring to CGST Act. I am not referring to SGST Act because the SGST is more or less is a replica. So I am giving reference of CGST Act only. Or maybe where if I am taking something from IGST, then IGST Act. So aggregate value, that the value has been given in section 15. So that what we have to keep in mind. Nitin bhai, next. Okay. आराम से नितिन भाई, आराम से.
Okay.
Now I am having time up to what? because I have started actually late because some technical problem. So I have to complete by 12, or can I extend further also?
You can
So
extend.
so up to what time, Nitin bhai?
1 o'clock is fine.
Okay, so I'll go aram se then. Otherwise, I thought I had to rush.
Yeah.
So it's okay with participants. They can put it in chat box. If not okay, so I will try to finish early.
No,
Okay.
no. It
So
should be
first
fine.
of all, yeah. So dealer of second-hand goods. So you know that in case of second-hand goods, you have an option that you can sell the goods sale price minus purchase price. So what is the difference? On that you can pay the GST. To understand better, suppose I have sold the goods, second hand goods, what it is 10 crore during the year. And the same good what I sold at 10 crore, I purchased at 9 crore. So in my P&L account, in my company's books of account, if I'm limited company, the turnover will come 10 crore. But as far as GST is concerned, what is the value? You have seen that section 2 subsection C6 says that aggregate value. Value as per section 15 and the rule thereunder says that different mechanism also in certain cases they have given. The same has been given in dealer of second hand goods. So dealer of second hand goods, my aggregate value is in this case is 1 crore rupees, not 10 crore rupees. So even though my books are required to be audited under Income Tax Act, maybe required to be audited under Companies Act, but it is not required to be audited under GST law because my aggregate turnover in this case is 1 crore, not 10 crore. Take another example of air travel agent. In case of air travel agent, they are saying that they have an option so that it is deemed that in case of domestic ticket what they are selling 5% will be their taxable value, and in case of foreign ticket, international ticket, it will be 10% of their ticket value. But really speaking, the commission what the air travel agents are getting maybe hardly 1% or 2%, that is the maximum what they are getting. So in the books of account, they may have a turnover of suppose 4 crore. But if you aggregate value, if you see as per GST law, if he is paying on the basic fare model, so it may be 10 crore rupees. So in this scenario also, he is required to get his account audited because the value is exceeding 5 crore. That what we have to keep in mind, that aggregate value as per the GST law. The same thing will happen in case of forex dealer. The life insurance, all these different mechanisms they have given. I'm not going into one to one and all the valuation rule because otherwise I will start discussing the valuation rule. I'm restricting my talk only and only in respect of aggregate turnover or outward supply, how to value that outward supply, only in respect of that. Now, next question arises is of pure agent. So, reimbursement of expenditure by pure agent on that it is not treated as supply, and you are not required to pay any GST on the same. But sometime what happened, maybe this pure agent reimbursement may form part of your turnover in your books of account, in your P&L account, but it is not treated as any supply. So you are also, when filing your GSTR1, GSTR3B, the value of that reimbursement you are not required to disclose in that return also. So if your taxable value is suppose 3 crore rupees and reimbursement is 7 crore rupees, so total turnover may be 10 crore rupees in income tax. But in GST law, it is only 3 crore rupees because reimbursement not to be treated as supply, so not to be taken. So not required to be audited. So my outward supply will only be 3 crore rupees. Again, another issue may be of sale of capital goods. So if I purchase any capital goods on which I have taken the credit and then I am selling that capital goods, I am not going into the valuation of the capital goods. Again, you know that valuation of the capital goods, again 5% reduction per quarter is allowed and all that, or maybe the transaction value. So I am treating this, my transaction value is more here. So the sale of capital goods, how we are disclosing? We are disclosing only profit or loss, whatever on the sale of goods in your P&L account. Suppose you have 4.75 lakh, 4 crore 75 lakh as your turnover in the P&L account, and you have a profit of only 5 lakh on the capital sale of capital goods. So maybe in your P&L it will be 4.8 crore, but the value of capital goods what you sold is suppose 50 lakhs. So now your aggregate turnover is 5.25 crore and GST audit is required to be done, and your value of outward supply will be 5.25 crore and not 4.8 crore. Just keep this in mind. Another issue is interest on loan. So interest on loan is exempt supply, but for purpose of calculating aggregate turnover need to be edited, as we have seen in section 2 subsection 6. It says that turnover should also include taxable supply as well as exempt supply. So that's why interest on loan is also a taxable supply, is an exempt supply, need to be included in the value of aggregate turnover. You may have credited that interest if it is a proprietary concern in your personal books of account, nothing to do with the your business account. In my view, even though for the purpose of aggregate turnover, that need to be added. Next, rent on residential property. Again, this is an exempt supply. Need to be added for purpose of calculating aggregate turnover. Why I am highlighting only this two is because this is you will commonly find in most of your client case. So I am not going into each and every exemption item to deal with. Another issue is of share of profit from firm. I am a chartered accountant. I am a partner in firm called GMJ and Company. So at the end of the year, I am getting certain percentage of share of profit in my books of account. So whether, and I am practicing suppose in my personal name also. So this share of profit need to be included for the purpose of aggregate turnover, need to be disclosed in my GSTR 9C anywhere. In my view, it is not required to be, because it is not a supply at all. Different author or different speaker may have a different view on that. What I am going to discuss in my entire presentation is what view I am holding. So according to me, the share of profit what I am getting from my firm is not a supply at all. And if it is not a supply, it will not form part of my aggregate turnover. It will not form part of my GSTR 9C as well. Next, share trading. All chartered accountant, all tax consultant, most of the client, maybe 80%, 90% of the client are having some income, maybe share trading profit, maybe investment in share, or maybe share capital gain in shares. So whatever you call, I will put it all this into the same bucket. So whether share trading will form part of my aggregate turnover, form part of my supply, it is another question. So if you, I request all the participants, they can put the, whenever I'm raising a question, put in a chat box also. So we can have an interactive session, because when I'm giving a physical lecture, so I know that what I'm talking and what is your reaction. But here on online mode, it is difficult to know what you are thinking. So you can put in the chat box. So share trading, as far as equity shares are concerned, if you go to the definition of goods, it says goods, all movable properties except securities and money. So it is not goods. Once you go to the definition of service, it says anything which is not goods other than money and security. So securities are neither goods nor service. And if it is neither good nor service, so if you go to the definition of supply, it says supply of goods or services. So if something is neither good nor service, then it cannot be called as supply. So it will not form part of your outward supply. It will not form part of your aggregate turnover nowhere. So should not be calculated for the purpose of calculating the limit of 5 crore or maybe the outward supply, whatever you call, this will not form part of anything. Next is high seas sale. Nitin bhai, I will take next also together. Next also. Yeah, okay. So I will take this three together: high sea sales, bond transfer, and out sale. So I'm not going into the legal language that taxable territory to non-taxable territory. So out sales means you all know commonly is that I'm buying a goods from UK and selling that goods to USA. So it's not coming into India, not touching to Indian border. So it's not forming part of export also, not forming part of import also. So IC sales, bond transfer, out sales, as far as 1718 was concerned, the custom authorities issued one circular and saying that it is a sale. It is liable to be taxed. It is liable to be taxed. On in May 2018, GST department has issued a circular saying that this will not supply and no GST is payable on the same. But no change has been made in the act to that effect. On 1st February 2019, they have made the amendment in the law, and this all these three items has been covered in Schedule 3. Schedule 3 says neither supply of goods nor supply of service. So if anything which is not a supply at all will not form part of your aggregate turnover also, that is what the view I am holding. So even if you are having a normal turnover of 2 crore rupees and high sea sales of 10 crore rupees, so according to me, not required to be audited. So same thing will happen with bond transfer, same thing will happen with out sale. This will not form part of my taxable turnover or my aggregate turnover. Next, Nitin bhai. Next question is remuneration to non-executive director. Before going further, I just want to thank Nitin bhai also for helping me in preparation of this presentation. He has shared a detailed presentation with me covering lots of issues going to be discussed today. So Nitin Bhai and another is Jinit Shah. This two-person has really helped me, and I have taken various issues from their presentation. So thank you Nitin Bhai and Jinit. So next issue is of remuneration to non-executive director. So whether it will form part of the turnover or will not form part of the turnover. So as far as remuneration to director is concerned, he's getting a salary. Now I'm not going into detail. The circular has been issued by the department, and they put the rest and saying that this is not a taxable supply. But whenever remuneration is to non-executive director, it is not a salary. There is no employer-employee relationship. So even though on this reverse charge may be applicable, company is going to pay GST on the same. But suppose that non-executive director is getting 20 lakh maybe as a sitting fees or any remuneration, and maybe getting another income in his personal capacity maybe of 4.9 crore, then also his turnover, this will be added to his turnover even though if he is not paying GST on the same. That is what the view I am holding. It will be outward supply. Even on those outward supply, GST is paid by somebody else, but it is the outward supply of that person only. Nitin bhai, next. Next is goods sent to job worker. So you know that separate provision is there under section 143, and which says that goods supplied to job worker and returned by job worker will not form part of the supply if the procedure under section 143 has been followed. So goods sent to the job worker, but if it is not returned within the prescribed time. So law says the time limit is 1 year, and commissioner, if you show that it is a necessity that this kind of goods cannot be returned within 1 year, so he can extend further period of 1 year. So if it is not returned within prescribed time, suppose commissioner has not extended 1 year period, so it is 1 year only. So if any goods has been supplied on suppose 1st April 2018, but not returned on 31st March 2019, so on 1st April it will be treated as supply. So this supply, even though no invoice has been raised, probably, but this will form part of your supply on 1st April 2018 itself, the first day on which you have supplied the goods. On that date, it will become your part of supply. So that value, if it is not written within prescribed time, should be added into the that year sales turnover, and accordingly you have to calculate the aggregate turnover, and accordingly it will form part of your outward supply, and on that outward supply need to be paid GST. So maybe this is not forming part of your GSTR 3B, not forming part of GSTR 1A of 2018-19, but should be liable for tax and should be disclosed in your GSTR 9 of that year. So this what we commonly known as end of the बैलेंस शीट डेट के बाद के आइटम है, बट फिर भी आपको एंड ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल ईयर के बाद की ये सब ट्रांजेक्शन भी when you are doing GST audit need to be checked whether all the goods sent during the year 2018-19 has been returned or not, because 18-19 का एक ईयर आपका लास्ट अप्रैल 20 पे मार्च 20 में खत्म हो जा रहा है. Now we are going to complete your audit in September 20. So all these also need to be checked. Nitin bhai, next. Another issue is of cash basis. As a chartered accountant, as a tax consultant, as an advocate, we are allowed to keep our books of account on cash basis. So on cash basis हो सकता है मेरा turnover 5 crore के नीचे होगा, but GST need to be paid on issue of invoice or receipt of payment, whichever is earlier. So you may have received cash or you have received payment of only rupees 4.75 crore in the financial year 18-19, but you have paid GST on your taxable turnover on 5.25 crore in that year. So you are required to get your account audited under GST law, and accordingly you have to show your outward supply in your return. Your outward supply will be 5.25, not 4.75, irrespective of books of account. So all this you have to keep in mind before taking any call, any further decision. So Nitin bhai, next. Now I hope you are clear with what I discussed is of in respect of GST turnover limit at that aggregate turnover. Now I am going to the definition of outward supply, because what is given to me is the task of outward supply. Turnover is also forming part of my outward supply. So outward supply in relation to a taxable person means a supply of goods or services or both, whether by sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, or disposal of any other mode. So the definition of outward supply is very, very, very big enough, very expanded definition they have given. They are not restricting itself to only, I can say, to sale, to transfer, but even the barter transactions, the exchange, rental, everything is covered. And it's not saying only covered, it says made or agreed to be made. What is the meaning of agreed to be made? In future, if I am doing it and for that I have received money now, then also it will form part of my outward supply. So any money received in advance for which goods to be supplied maybe in the year 1920, but money is received in 1819, then also it will form part of my outward supply. So further in detail, we will see what is all this terminology means. It is my next. Now barter exchange, or maybe the barter exchange. I am a partner in CA firm, and as Sheila has said in the beginning, is that I am super specialized or specialized. That I don't know what is that, but I am practicing only in GST. But my personal income tax return need to be filed. So the team of GMJ, my firm, is taking care of my personal income tax return. So the firm is filing my personal income tax return. So whether it is a supply for the firm or not. So partner and a firm are two distinct persons. I'm not going into the whole gamut of GST law. You all know that partner and the firm are the related person. And in case of related person, as per Schedule 1, if any transaction, if there is no consideration, then also it will be treated as supply. So firm is filing my personal return of income tax. According to me, if you go the strict interpretation of the law, should form part of supply of the firm. No one is practically doing it, but this is what the view I am holding. Next, other views are also possible. As I said, a CA or a lawyer sitting in the office of a client, and client is not charging anything for the sitting space, but in lieu of that sitting space, what is using in the client office is giving free consultancy to the client. So it's purely, both are a taxable supply, that is renting of immobile property for commercial purpose and giving a consultancy. Here I am taking only chartered accountant because lawyer services I'm not going because it is maybe in the reverse charge or whatever. So at this moment, so this is again a barter transaction, and both parties are supplying services to each other, and both are giving outward supply. So that should be, in my view, should be added to your outward supply. Again, that issue is of valuation, how to do. I am not going into that detail. Another barter transaction is developer giving constructed property to landlord in exchange of development right. So again, this will form part of your outward supply. That is also a barter transaction but will remain outward supply. Next, film actor getting equity share for doing advertisement for a particular company. The company said that, okay, your fees may be 1 crore rupees. What I will give you is 10 lakh rupees in check and balance 90 lakh worth equity shares I will give you. So even if he is getting a barter, he is getting a equity shares of that 90 lakh. That 90 lakh is the value of taxable supply. In this case is 1 crore rupees, not only 10 lakh rupees. So whenever I am going into the barter transaction, first of all, it is very difficult to find out that CA sitting in the office of client and giving free consultancy. Difficult to find out this transaction, first of all. Second, even if we find out, then there will be difficulty of valuation. And third, valuation and then the time of supply. So all these challenges are there once you are going for annual return or maybe audit. So how to deal with that, how to find out that their barter transaction is there or not, barter exchange is there or not. You have to, this transaction may not be recorded in the books of account. Possibly, sometime may be possible, like firm is filing personal income tax return. Nowhere it will be recorded in my books of account, neither it will be recorded in my firm's books of account. So how to find out all this transaction is again a big challenge. But as far as strict interpretation of law is concerned, it should be taxable and should form part of your outward supply in your annual return GSTR 3B, GSTR 1 and GSTR 9C. Next, Nitin bhai. Next is Schedule 1. Schedule 1 again says that, as I said, that even if supply is without consideration, it will be treated as supply and GST is payable on the same. The first item in that is permanent transfer or disposal of business asset where input tax credit has been availed on such asset. So if I purchase any computer system on which I have taken any credit, the life is, suppose a laptop I purchased, the life is only 2 years or 3 years. After 3 years, I have donated this laptop to a charitable organization. Since I have taken input tax credit on this and I permanently dispose of that business asset, it will without consideration, then also it will be a supply and should form part of your outward supply, should be covered in one GSTR 1, 3B, 9 and 9C both, and should may not be covered in your books of account, may not be forming part of your turnover in books of account, but should form part of your outward supply. Then next is supply of goods or services between related person. The one example I have discussed, that CA firm is filing return of partner. It is a related person. Or between distinct person. So you know that distinct person is one branch to another branch in a different state. When made in the course or furtherance of business, so it will be treated as supply without consideration. Then supply of goods between principal and agent and vice versa. And import of services by a person taxable by a taxable person from a related person or from any of his other establishment outside India in the course or furtherance of business. All these are Schedule 1 items, should form part of your outward supply, may not be recorded in your books of account, but should be taken care of the same. Next. So this I have given some example of permanent transfer or disposal of asset. I am not going to discuss in detail because presentation I have already shared. So definitely CGPI team will share with you, and there is nothing to explain. Next. Branch transfer may the specific issue, only two issues I will take, maybe the cross charge. So most of the companies are not doing cross charge. Cross charge need to be done any services provided by HO or corporate office to branch, or branch office is supplying any services to head office. All this we commonly known as cross charge. So all this cross charge will also form part of your outward supply, should be paid tax and should be reported in your GSTR 9. So this is what the basic question you should ask in case of multiple GSTN by a single client, that he has done that cross charge or not. So maybe any movement of goods, maybe movement of capital goods, that all should be outward supply from the transferor to the transferee location. And another issue nowadays is due to lockdown, now work from home, that new normal what we are seeing. So many employees during the lockdown said to the company that, sir, we are not having any laptop. So you give that laptop. So company has supplied that laptop from the office or maybe from vendor directly to the residence of the employee. And the employer and employee are the related person. So whether this will be a supply or will form part of your outward supply. So in my view, the ownership of the laptop or that computer system or that equipment will remain always and always with the company. So there is no transfer of property in goods from employer to the employee. So in that case, this is not a supply and will not form part of your outward supply. But sometime what happened is company company is taken on lease the laptop. I have seen that many CA firms, what they are doing is they are saying their employees or their article clerk to buy the laptop, and then they are giving a monthly rental to them for the period of 3 years or something like that. So this will become outward supply in case of employees or in case of article. So again, the situation to situation, that call you have to take. But as far as employer and employees are concerned, they are related person. Even if it is without consideration, it will be GST is applicable. But in my view, the laptop what is supplied by a company to the employee to work for the company during the period of lockdown from work from home should not form part of a supply. Next. Then another issue is of composite supply and mixed supply as far as the outward supply disclosure is concerned in GSTR 9 and 9C. So composite supply has been given in section 2 subsection 30, means a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient comprising of two or more supplies of goods or services or combination thereof, which are naturally bundled and supply in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply. So again, in the definition itself, they have given one illustration where they are saying that where goods are packed and transported with insurance, the supply of goods, packing material, transport, and insurance is the composite supply, and supply of goods is the principal supply. Next. Then mixed supply has been given definition in 2 subsection 74. Two or more individual supplies of goods or services or any combination thereof made in conjunction with each other, a taxable person for a single price where such good supply does not constitute a composite supply. And again, they have given an example in the definition itself saying that a company, a supply of a package consisting of canned food, sweets, chocolate cake, dry fruit, aerated drink, and fruit juice when supplied for a single price is a mixed supply. Each of these items can be supplied separately and is not dependent on each other. It shall not be mixed supply if these are supplied separately. So this is what the definition they have given. Next. So principal supply again is means the supply of goods or services which constitutes the predominant element of a composite supply and to which any other supply forming part of that composite supply is ancillary and does not constitute for the recipient an aim itself but a means for better enjoyment for a supply. So I have just summarized what is composite and mixed supply. Next. So composite supply shall be treated as supply of such principal supply, and mixed supply shall be treated as supply of that particular supply which attract the highest rate of tax. So what example we have seen that goods along with packing material, along with transportation, along with insurance, but the principal supply is goods. So whatever the value tax rate of goods, everything will be taxable at the same price. Suppose that goods is taxable at 18%, maybe the GTA service is applicable at 5%, but will be taxable at 18%. And mixed supply, in that case, whatever different goods or services we are supplying. So composite supply, you can say the work contract is also a composite supply, means a contract for building, construction, fabrication, completion, erection, installation, fitting out, improvement, modification, repair, maintenance, revocation, alteration, or commissioning of any immovable property wherein transfer of property in goods. So all these are then catering. Catering is also a supply of goods along with the services, being a food or any other article of human consumption, is also a you can say a composite supply. These are the two examples broadly you can see. Next. Now some example we will see. The recently the AR has come, Gujarat AR, Shri Dipesh Anil Kumar Nayak, delivered recently in the month of March 20, saying that sale of a plotted land is a composite supply, and composite supply in this case is a service, construction service, and accordingly it should be taxable. So I have a otherwise view. If you treat this as a composite supply, that what is the principal item is the land, which is not taxable, and whatever I'm uh, bifurcating a plot, I'm not giving any service at all, because whatever service I'm doing for myself, and then to make that product as taxable at saleable in the market. So I'm not discussing on further on this because this is not my today's topic. So I'm just highlighting this issue. Next. Next is installation of AC. So whether it is a composite supply or mixed supply. So in the nature, generally in the nature of business, you are doing that, it is expected to be consumed together, then it should be a composite supply. So it is expected that the shopkeeper will sell the AC and install the AC in my residence or at my office. Then it will be a composite supply, and the principal supply in this case may be a air condition, that is goods. But sometime it may be possible that it may be a chilling plant where the installation work is more important than the supply of goods. So then it may be a supply of service also. So what is the which is the principal supply, that you need to be taken on contract to contract basis. Another example, a builder nowadays is not able to sell the flat. So he has come out with the option, with the scheme, saying that once you book the flat in his under constructed property, then he will give car free. That whatever car he is giving, and whether it is a principal, whether it is a composite supply, in my view, it is not a composite supply, because it is not expected to be consumed together. It is a two different product, purpose is different, and to be consumed differently. So it will become mixed supply. Once it will become mixed supply, then the tax rate applicable on the product on which the highest tax rate is applicable should be charged on an entire transaction. So purchase of flat, maybe it is more, not affordable housing, residential house 5%, but car may be taxable at 28% plus cess. So it will become mixed supply and accordingly should be taxable. That what you have to keep in mind while filing annual return and doing audit, whether it is a what. Next, another example what Nitin Bhai prompted me, that live ice cream parlor, whether they are manufacturing ice cream or whether they are manufacturing and supply goods, that is ice cream, or along with that service, that some service element is also there. So in my view, it is a composite supply. It is to be consumed together, goods and that service. So it will go in my restaurant service, and accordingly it should be taxed. Next. Another example what Nitin Bhai has shared with me is that sale of dal delivered at home and charges levied for transportation. Maybe charges levied or may not be charges levied. So it is then become a composite supply. According to me, it should not be mixed supply, and accordingly should be taxed. Next. Where many times you have seen that hotels are giving free pickup and drop facility from airport, maybe complimentary breakfast, maybe free entry to gym and swimming pool and discotheque, etc. And various other bundle has been made along with the room. So whether it is composite supply or mixed supply should be taxed at one price or different price. That again you have to see on the contract to contract basis, and accordingly you have to determine the value while calculating your outward supply. So according to me, all this whatever I have written here is a composite supply. It is expected to be consumed together. So will not form part of mixed supply. Next. A restaurant gives complimentary glass of beer with dinner during happy hour. So I am holding a view that it may be a mixed supply. It will not be a composite supply because beer is a non-GST item and food is covered under GST. Supply of food covered under GST. So if there is one taxable item and one GST item and another is non-GST item, then it cannot be a composite supply. It will automatically become mixed supply and should accordingly be taxed. तो इन दैट सिनेरियो बियर के ऊपर आपको स्टेट वैट वगैरह जो पे करना है वो तो करना ही करना है. And then when you are giving complimentary beer, then it will form part of mixed supply and then it is taxable at service. So on that also you need to pay 5%. Otherwise that service tax GST is not applicable. If it is not, it will not be a complimentary. Next. So this I have given some example for better understanding of your outward supply. Then another question arises that vehicle manufacturer has given discount voucher of rupees 1000 to the customer, which customer redeems at authorized service station, and service station gets reimbursed of rupees 1000 from manufacturer. So it will come in whose outward supply? That is the question. So definitely it will become outward supply of the service center, because service center is getting that money for giving service to the manufacturer. According to me, he is not giving any service to the car owner. He is giving to the manufacturer, because the manufacturer is liable to pay for his services to the vehicle manufacturer, to the service center. So it will come in the outward supply of service station. Next. There is an amusement park gives discount coupon of 20% on food and beverages bought within the park. So sometimes they come out with the scheme at the entry they are charging some fees and they are giving a 20% F&B coupon. And that F&B coupon you can go to any eating joint within the amusement park and get 20% discount. And this 20% discount, what you are getting, will be reimbursed by that amusement park owner to that F&B outlet. So all this in this scenario, this F&B outlet, for him, the outward supply will not, and that 20% what discount is giving in this case is amusement park is giving discount for the rental what is going to charge to the F&B outlet within the amusement park. So I hope you understood the what query I am raising. So there is a barter transaction. So amusement park as well as F&B outlet. The F&B outlet, for him, the supply of food in a restaurant, that service is giving not only 80 rupees but he is giving 100 rupees. 80 is getting from customer, 20 is going to get from the amusement park owner. So his outward supply will be 100 rupees. As far as amusement park is concerned, the rental what is going to get from the F&B outlet is only in terms in books it may be 80 rupees, but actually it should be taxable at 100 rupees. So all these transactions need to be seen correctly and understood this transaction, and accordingly you should take a call. Nitin bhai, next. CGPI is very vibrant association. I have seen that working for the betterment or advancement or education, sharing educational knowledge with the participants, with their member, and really working very hard under the leadership of Sujata Madam and Ishan Patkar and Nitin Bhai, Sheel, etc. I know. So CGPI has organized a seminar on GST. I am talking about in the month of February 2020. The expected cost of the seminar was rupees 1 lakh and attended by 100 members. The CGPI received a sponsorship of from a GST software company of 25,000. And what they did is, so now actually recovered 25,000 from the sponsorship service provider, and accordingly what they did is they have decided that they, instead of charging 1,000 rupees from each member, they are going to charge only 750 rupees from each member because they are getting a sponsorship. Next. So now the question here is that two question arises. First is that CGPI also provide material, food, stationery, that is pen, pad, etc. in the seminar. So whether it is a composite supply or mixed supply, you can put in the chat box. So it is a composite supply. All these services are expected to be consumed together. And the principal supply is the seminar, that is training, and accordingly it should be taxable. Another question, whether the CGPI is required to charge GST from the participants on sponsorship also. Because it is getting subsidized or getting some sponsorship from 25,000 from the software company, and that software company is going to pay GST under reverse charge because this is covered under RCM. That's what we are talking about. And why they are charging 750 to the participants? Because they got another benefit. Otherwise, they would have charged 1,000 rupees. Correct, Nitin bhai? Nitin bhai lag raha mute pe hai. So
yes, sir,
this
he's
is
on mute. Since he's presenting, he's on mute, sir.
No, तो शील भाई अदरवाइज 1,000 रुपया चार्ज करते बराबर ना?
Right, sir.
But there is no consideration flowing in. So your outward supply will be 750 only, not will be 1,000 per participant. So all these transactions need to be seen in detail, understand before completing your GST audit. So that's why I'm raising all these issues. So next, Nitin bhai. This issue also has been sent by नितिन भाई, एंड मुझे अच्छा लगा थोड़ा तो मैंने ले लिया क्योंकि बड़े आदमी का नाम है इसमें. So there is Amitabh Bachchan who owns 2 commercial property in BKC. Area of the property is 1 lakh square feet, and property 1 and property 2 is 50,000 square feet. Fair rent of the same or similar kind of property is 200 rupees per square feet in that area. Property 1 he has given on rent to Salman Khan at rupees 300 per square feet plus 2 crore rupees deposit, who is registered under the provision of GST law. So there is no issue at all. So 300 रुपए पर स्क्वायर फीट के हिसाब से जो भी है उस पे 18% GST has to pay. Property number 2 he has given on rent to Aishwarya Rai Bachchan. She is a daughter-in-law at rupees 50 per square feet plus 50 lakh deposit, who is also registered under provision of GST law. So now we have seen that in case of related party, Schedule 1 says that even if no consideration has been received, then also this transaction will be supply and GST is applicable on the same. So in that case, the valuation rule is also there. Next. Next slide. So it says that if full ITC is available to the recipient, whatever may be the invoice value shall be on that will be treated as outward supply. So suppose in this case, if Aishwarya Rai Bachchan is getting the credit, entire credit of this, whatever he is charged, so that 50 rupees a square feet will be fine enough instead of fair market value. If she is not getting full credit, then it says that whatever may be the open market value of such supply. So open market value is, in this case, is 200 rupees per square feet. If that is not available, then next option is the value of supply of like kind and quality. That is 300 rupees what is getting from Salman Khan. And if it is not determined, then you have to go to Rule 30 and 31. The Rule 30 says cost plus 10%, etc., etc. So this is the valuation mechanism. And according to this valuation mechanism, you should arrive at the outward supply. So for that, in case of related party, you have to go into the books of the related person, the service recipient also, whether she is getting a full credit or not. If she is getting full credit, no issue at all. Otherwise, instead of 50 rupees per square feet, it should be taxable at 200 rupees per square feet, and accordingly your outward supply will change. Next. So now I discuss what is outward supply, what is the valuation, etc., etc. So now I'm going to the GST annual return and audit some technical things, and then how to disclose in the form also. So first of all, as far as audit is concerned, books of accounts are required to be audited under any other statute. If yes, then financial need not be audited again. Under GST law, only reconciliation statement to be certified. But if books of accounts are not required to be audited under any other statute, then first of all, you should prepare your P&L, get it audited, and then only your GST audit will start. So there are two assignments in this case. So this is possible in certain cases, like example, what I have said, that in case of air travel agent, maybe in case of air travel agent, his turnover maybe 1.75 crore. So he is not required to be audited under income tax law, and he is a individual. He is not required to be audited under income tax law. But since he is paying GST on 5% in domestic or 10% in international, most of his sale are international. So his turnover may be 7 crore as far as GST is concerned. So in this scenario, he is required to get his account first audited, and then GST audit will start. So आउटवर्ड सप्लाई से ये भी आपको एक मैच करके देखना है कि ऑडिट लगेगा या नहीं लगेगा. नेक्स्ट. Again, definition of audit has been given. This specifically, Jinit has requested me to cover the scope of audit. So I am covering this. So audit has been defined, GST audit has been defined under section 2, subsection 13, which says audit means the examination of records, return and other documents maintained or furnished by registered person under this act or the rules made thereunder or any other law for the time being in force, to verify the correctness of turnover declared, taxes paid, refund claimed, and input tax credit availed, and to assess his compliance with the provision of this act and rules made thereunder. Next. So this is the provision of the law. I have explained this. So audit is examination of record, return, and other document. So it's not restricting itself only to the return. It says examination of records, returns, that is GSTR1, 3B, etc., and also the other document. Next. And those records, return and document might have been maintained or furnished under GST law or any other law, maybe under the company's law, maybe under the income tax law or under any other law. So if you are a company, then in Companies Act you are required to maintain the minutes. So that is also a record. So it is expected that you should also see that. That is what the definition of audit says. Next. The examination is to verify. So what you have to examine in that? The examination is to verify the correctness of turnover declared, taxes paid, refund claimed, and input tax credit availed. Why I have referred here the minutes book? Because there may be a certain barter transaction. There may be some cross charge between the branch and the head office or branch or vice versa. So this may be recorded in the minutes but may not be recorded in the books of account. And what you have to examine as far as GST audit is concerned is to verify the correctness of turnover declared and taxes paid. So any related party transaction, or maybe any barter cross charge between branches. So if you are not considering that, then turnover declared and taxes paid will not be matched, and you are not giving the correctness of the same. That's why it is required to be seen. Next, the examination is also to assess the auditee's compliance and provision of GST Act and rules. So if you see the definition of GST audit, which is given in the CGST Act, is very, very, very wide enough. Very wide enough, I should say. So it's not restricting only to the law maintained under GST law, the books or records or accounts or etc. maintained under GST law, but it's going far away under any law. And it says what you have to verify the correctness. So you can't form your opinion also. You have to give the correctness of turnover declared, taxes paid, and in ITC and refund claim. So wide enough according to me. Next. Again, they have issued a press release dated 3rd July 2019, where they have commented on the role of a chartered accountant or cost accountant who are doing GST audit. Next. So they said that there are apprehension that the chartered accountant or cost accountant, first of all, this is a press release. And press release, as you are consultant know that press release is neither binding on department nor binding on SSE. So only it is for the press purpose. Circular definitely binding on department, notification, rules, act is actually a forming part of law. But press release has no legal sanctity, no validity, nothing. So in press release, they said that there are apprehension that chartered accountant or cost accountant sorry, may go beyond the books of account in their recommendation under Form GSTR 9C. Next. The GST Act is clear in this regard. With respect to the reconciliation statement, so you are aware that as far as GSTR 9C is concerned, we have two parts. Part A is reconciliation statement. Part B is audit. So what you are doing is you are doing reconciliation statement and audit. So here in the next para, in this para, what he's talking about is the GST Act is clear in this regard. With respect to reconciliation statement, why they are restricting itself to reconciliation statement? Why they are not saying that 9C part A and part B? They are saying that their role is limited to reconciling the values declared in the annual return. That is Form GSTR 9 with the audited annual accounts to the taxpayer. So I also know that. But why you are asking me everything in GSTR part B? Correctness of books of account and other thing. And why you are not amending the GST Act itself, where in section 213, subsection 13, they are defining GST audit and the scope of the audit is very, very, very wide enough what we have seen. So according to me, still I am holding a view that our role is not limited to reconciliation statement. That's what you have to keep in mind. Different author, different faculties are having a different views on the same. So with this, I proceed further. Next, Nathan bhai. So what are the documents to accompany GSTR 9C is the annual return and the copy of audited annual account. That's why I said that if your accounts are not audited, then first you have to get your account audited, then your GST audit will start. And each other particular as may be prescribed. Next. Understanding the business of, so what is the prerequisite for GST annual return and audit is that understanding the business of the auditee, understanding the accounting, understanding the GST law, IT infrastructure, applicability of various notifications, circular clarifications, because you know that daily it's changing. So आप आज कुछ clarification issue करते हैं, next day you are changing your stand. So then you have to be very updated. 17-18 में जो प्रोविजन थे हो सकता है 18-19 में नहीं होंगे, 18-19 में भी कोई प्रोविजन आपके 4 बार चेंज हो गए. दैट व्हाट वी डिस्कस, दैट IC sales and that bond transfer and out sale became part of the schedule 3 from 1st February 2019, but uske pehle it is maybe exempted. So then you have to treat this as exempt supply, not as not a supply. So again, your stand is changing as far as your audit is concerned. Then classification and nature of supplies, fixed supply, composite supply, then what is the classification, where the services or goods are falling, then manner of availment of credit, all these you should understand before starting a GST audit, it is must. Next. Then what are the documents required to start your GSTR annual return and audit is your GSTR 1, 3B, 2A, GSTR 9 and TRAN 1, TRAN 2. Because TRAN 1, TRAN 2, why I am talking is that TRAN 2 तो आपने सब भरा ही आपका 18-19 में है, because उसके पहले फॉर्म ही नहीं था. Then you require statutory audit report, income tax audit report, cost audit report, branch auditor report, signed copy of financial statement, along with note, schedule, grouping, segment reporting, consolidated and GST and wise trial balance. If you are doing an audit of multiple client, then definitely you require GST and wise trial balance. And I suggest that when they are taking a GST and wise trial balance, get it signed by the auditee itself on that trial balance. Because उसने बीच में कुछ चेंज किया है, क्या किया है, we are not come to know, because that is not the audited branch wise audit nobody is doing. In that case it will be a difficult. Then reconciliation of figures, GST and wise. So GST and wise you should reconcile, and then you have to arrive at the consolidated figure, and it should match with your P&L. Then only if you are doing that, then only you should start with your GST audit. And definitely, of course, you require GST and trial, uska password client ka lagega. Next. What is important here is books of account, because you are need to comment also on the books of account as far as the GST annual return and audit is concerned. So I just given a comparison what has been given about books of account in section 35(1) and section 128 of the Companies Act. First, I will read what is given in section 128 of the Companies Act. So it said that every company to prepare and keep the books of account and other relevant books and papers and financial statement at its registered office. So where it need to be kept, it is need to be kept at registered office. And it should be maybe true and fair. So it is expected that books of account what you are keeping at registered office, preparing at registered office, may be true and fair. Not necessary that it should be true and fair. They are saying maybe true and fair. But once I go to section 35(1) of CGST Act, it says that every registered person shall keep and maintain at his principal place of business as mentioned in the certificate of registration. So आपका जो principal place है each state में, वहां पे आपका books of account होना चाहिए. So I have seen that in case of multiple GSTN, they are keeping books of account only at HO. It is not expected, it is not correct. You have to have your books of account at the principal place of that state. And next, if you see, it should be a true and correct. So account should not be true and fair, it has to be true and correct. That what you are going to certify once you are doing a GST audit. Next. And list of documents required to be maintained. I'm not going into detail. You can read in the presentation. Next. These are the various reconciliation need to be done for your annual return as well as audit, that is invoices versus your books of account, because there may be a possibility that there may be a certain supplies which may not be a sale. There may be a certain barter transaction may not form part of your books of account, but invoice need to be raised. So there has to be some reco between invoices and books of account. Then your invoices and GST are 3B, books of account and 3B, books of account and GST are 1, 3B versus GST are 1. Then payment voucher and invoice of a registered person. Then purchase register versus 2A versus 3B. Then turnover as in GST returns versus books of account. Your e-way bill. Now this is also one of the requirement as far as your 2018-19 is concerned. E-way bill was not operative in 2017-18. So reconciliation of your e-way bill versus GSTR1, e-way bill versus your sales, e-way bill versus purchase, e-way bill versus non-supply transaction. Next. Then e-way bill reconciliation, why it is important? That matching of invoice of e-way bill with the sales shown in GSTR1 will help supplier in assessing whether the supplies have been accurately shown in sales return and GST paid on the same. There will be a significant tool with the GST authorities in curbing tax evading practices. You all know that various notices are served by the authorities seeking clarification of what differences in tax amount and your e-way bill. So any action taken by tax authorities against the business for non-wrong generation of e-way bill. So all these are actually, this is for all this purpose it is required. Next. So now what are the issues with respect to e-way bill? So stock transfer. So stock transfer within the state. If the value within the Maharashtra state is more than 1 lakh, e-way bill is required to be generated. The goods to be moved from one branch to another branch within the same state with the e-way bill. So that stock transfer actually happened or not should be checked from this e-way bill. Next. Then dispatch of goods. So whether you have actually dispatched the goods or not, that you will come to know from e-way bill. Next. Receipt of goods. So there is a provision under the GST law which says that if you are not receiving the goods, the credit will not be allowed. So if e-way bill is not generated in your name, department may say that it is not goods is not received, the credit will not be allowed. Next. Then e-way bill is also required to be generated if it is in case of free supply of goods. Goods may be supplied free of cost to the related parties, to the employees. In that scenario, it may be a supply. And if it is given free supply of goods, then input tax credit need to be reversed. So all this movement, if it happened, may not form part of your books of account, may not be affecting maybe your P&L, but need to be checked, and accordingly you have to take a effect in your annual return. Next. Goods sent on approval. So there is a provision that if you are sending goods on approval, then GST is not paid and it is not be a supply. But if that goods is not returned within 6 months, then it will be treated as supply of goods. So for all that purpose, you can verify with the e-way bill and what delivery challan, how many days it has happened, and accordingly you can treat it as supply or not supply. Then goods taken on for exhibition. तो एग्जीबिशन में ले जाके मैंने वहीं का वहीं माल बेच दिया, तो वापस आते टाइम मेरा ई-वे बिल में वैल्यू कम होगा, डिलीवरी चालान में मेरा वैल्यू कम हो सकता है. So whether I booked that or not, so all that transaction need to be verified from e-way bill. Next. Then e-way bill prepared but no supply and also not cancelled on time. This is also an issue. So I got an order from the customer to supply certain goods. So accordingly I prepared the invoice and I prepared the e-way bill. बट ई-वे बिल बना देने के बाद में लोड करते करते कस्टमर का फोन आया, ही कैंसल्ड द ऑर्डर and I have not cancelled the e-way bill because e-way bill need to be cancelled within 24 hours only. So this is really a challenge. So you should keep a reconciliation of this to prove your stand later on to the department. Next. Sometimes movement of goods can be guiding force to determine the service also. To providing certain services, you need some goods to be taken along with you, or maybe in a service contract, if I'm required to change some parts, then the movement of e-way bill is there. So some e-way bill is there. So you can come to know that that service has been supplied, but bill has not been booked. So all this can be verified from e-way bill. in this kind of scenario. Next, Nitin. Supply of goods to the related person, also you can verify from e-way bill. Next, goods sent and received from job worker, for that also you need to issue e-way bill, but may not, and then you can verify from ITC4, and then the delivery challan whether it is matching or not. So come to know that actually what transaction is happening and GST is paid properly on the same or not. Next. E-way bill is not required to be made once there is no movement of goods. There may be a possibility that goods may be sold without movement, so e-way bill may not be there. So it's not necessary. It is not conclusive evidence that whenever you are seeing any sale, there has to be e-way bill. So accordingly, all this reconciliation need to be prepared before finalizing your audit as far as the outward supply audit is concerned. Next. Again, the question arises, what should be the primary data source as far as my GST annual return is concerned, because I have a data from three sources mainly, that is GSTR1, GSTR3B and books of account. So which is my primary source? किसको मुझे बेस लेके भरना है? क्योंकि मेरे GSTR1 में, GSTR9 में तो फिगर GSTR1 से और 3B से आ रहा है. But actually my figure may be not correct as far as GSTR1 or 3B is concerned, but my figure as far as my books of accounts are concerned should always be expected to be correct. So in my view, I am holding a view that your books of accounts should be your primary data source. Next. So this is just the summary of annual return. Next. These are the basic detail. Once you log in, all this will appear. Next. Next, sir. Next. Nitin bhai. Yeah. So now this is what the table 4 is there as far as annual return. Previous slide, sir. Sir, slide number 41. Yeah. Nitin bhai, slide number 41. Yeah. Nitin bhai is very fast. I'm a little bit slow, sir. Okay. So this is actually the table what is appearing as far as your GSTR annual return is concerned. So what is expected in your table 4 is that details of advances, inward and outward supplies made during the financial year on which tax is payable. So your exempt supply or thing which is on tax, maybe a taxable supply, but on which tax is not required to be paid, maybe a zero rated supply under LUT, all this will not come in this table 4. So only on which tax is payable will only come here. There may be a possibility that liability neither disclosed in GSTR1 nor in GSTR3B of 18-19 as well as April to September 19. So कुछ मेरा छूट गया है ट्रांजेक्शन, लायबिलिटी मेरी, तो वो भी मेरी टेबल 4 में ही आएगी. छूट गया है तो भी मुझे बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स में अगर है तो मुझे दिखाना है. तो टेबल ए इज टॉकिंग अबाउट B2C सप्लाई. तो जो भी मेरा B2C सप्लाई है सब ट्रांजेक्शन टेबल 4A में आएगा. आई एम नॉट गोइंग इनटू द डिटेल ऑफ table 4A, table each of the table, because I will concentrate more issues only, because what I have been communicated to me by the organizer that they are interested in only the participants are interested in issues. So the another issue is that supply of TDR or FSI by the owner to the developer. The time of supply triggered, but payment of tax as per notification 4/2018 in the next year. So what law says is, if you have read that notification 4/2018, you understood what question I am raising. So it says that if you are giving FSI to the developer, and against that FSI, the developer is giving you a constructed flat. So when that GST should be leviable on this FSI. FSI वगैरह will be exempted or covered under reverse charge from 1st April 2019. I am talking about 2018-19. So in 4/2018, the law says that you are need to pay the tax at the time on first possession or completion certificate, whichever is earlier, or maybe the allotment letter whenever it has been issued. So allotment letter has not been issued to me, but I have transferred the FSI on 1st April 2018 itself to the developer. So my time of supply has triggered, but payment will be due on the next year. The building has been completed maybe today, that is maybe in the July 2020. So GST need to be paid on that FSI in the year 2021, but time of supply has been triggered. So whether it should be disclosed here or not, again it is a big question mark, because on this tax is payable, but tax is payable in the year 2021, but time of supply triggered here. So taking a practical view, I will disclose this in the year 2021, not in the year 1819, because tax is not payable in the year 1819. Table 4 broad heading is tax is payable. So accordingly, I will go. Then again, table 4b is supply made to B2B, then zero rated supply on which tax is to be paid, and supply paid SEZ on payment of tax, then deemed export. So I'm not going into detail of what is to be disclosed in which table. It is not expected also. Next. Then any advances on which tax is paid but invoice is not raised. So in respect of goods, you are not required to disclose anything, because in respect of goods, whatever money you are receiving in advance, GST is not payable on the same. But in respect of services, you have received money in March 19, but for the same you have issued invoice in the month of April 19. So that money will be disclosed in 4F. So 4G is inward supplies on which tax is to be paid on reverse charge basis. That need to be disclosed. Then I, J, etc. You have to show the credit note and debit note, etc. So I'm not going into detail. Next. So now they have 4B to 4E. They have made. They said that if you are having any difficulty, then you can disclose the data in 4I and नेट ऑफ फिगर 4B to E का 4I and L से नेट ऑफ करके आप दिखा सकते हैं. But condition is in case any difficulty in reporting such detail separately. What difficulty I will have to net off credit note and invoice? Very difficult for me to understand. So I will definitely I will say that I will prefer to disclose this separately only. Next, Nitin bhai. Then details of outward supplies made during the financial year on which tax is not payable. So it says that zero rated supply, that is export under LUT, supply to SEZ under LUT will come here. Then supplies on which tax is to be paid by the recipient on reverse charge basis. So suppose I am a GTA and I am also supplying services of stock and store and warehousing services. So store and warehousing services will come in table 4, and GTA service on which my recipient is paying tax, but it will form part of my turnover. So that will come in my 5C. Then exempt supply, nil supply, nil rated supply, non-GST supply, you can consolidated figure you can disclose in this table, and you can proceed further. Schedule 3 item, schedule security, already I the securities etc. I already discussed. So next. Then credit note in respect of on which GST is not payable will come in HIJK. And further they have said that, next Nitin bhai. They have said that if you have difficulty in disclosing separate figure in A to F and H to K, so you can show net of figure. Again, I will highly recommend that you should disclose all these figure different figure in different table. Should not net off. Next. And after table 4 and 5, I'll directly jump to table 10 and 11 because I'm not going into ITC and table 8 and etc. because it is not expected. So table 10 and 11 is saying that any particular of the transaction relating to 1819 you are disclosing in the April to September 19. Then this figure will come here. So supplies of tax declared through amendment plus net of debit note, so that will come in table, and supplies or tax reduced through amendment or net of credit note for the any invoices we have issued the credit note in the year 1920 related to 1819 will come here. And RCM liability of 1819 paid in 1920 will come here. Next. So now certain financials also transaction I have to do that. I have taken here. Nitin, I still have a time. Sheel.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
It's
sir.
okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely, sir. Please keep, sir, at least 10 minutes for question and answers also, sir.
Okay. So I will try to finish it this fast. Okay, transaction of outward supply of 2018-19 where to disclose. So first of all, so you can understand this table. So आपको काफी आसानी हो जाएगी. So it says that if it is reported while filing of your return during the year financial 18-19, during the year next table is next column is during the year financial 19-20. So whenever I am saying 1920, it is that during the April 19 to September 19 only that what you should read. And if something is not reported at all in this entire 1.5 year, that is from April 18 to September 19 तक के रिटर्न में नहीं दिखाया है तो तीसरे टेबल में आ जाएगा. So any outward taxable supplies, if you reported in the financial year 18-19 itself, so definitely it will form part of your table 4. During the year financial year 19-20 में, that is April to September 19-20 में दिखाया है आपने, तो 10-11 में आ जाएगा. If you have not disclosed anywhere, then it will definitely go in your table 4. That amendment in outward taxable supplies will form part in your table 4K and L in case of it is disclosed in 18-19. But if it is disclosed in 19-20, then it will go to table 10 and 11. But if it is not reported, again it will go back to table 4 only. Then outward non-taxable supplies will go in your table 5. But if you disclose during the year 19-20, that is April to September, then form part of your 10-11. And if it is not reported, then we'll go to again table 5. And amendment in outward non-taxable supply, again table 5J and K. 19-20 में अगर किया April to September 19 में, तो then table 10 and 11. And otherwise it will go to table 5J and K. And inward supplies RCM will go to table 4G. Next. एंड अगर आपका 18-19 से रिलेटेड आरसीएम है जो कि आपने पेमेंट इन 19-20 में किया है, तो इट विल फॉर्म पार्ट ऑफ योर एनुअल रिटर्न ऑफ 19-20 इटसेल्फ, नॉट फॉर्म पार्ट ऑफ योर टेबल 80, फॉर्म पार्ट ऑफ योर 18-19 एनुअल रिटर्न. Then disclosure of transactions outward supply. So nature of transaction I have given, then transaction of financial year 2018-19 reported in GSTR 1 or 3B. Then April to September 19 में अगर 1 और 3B में दिखाया है, और disclosure in annual return. तो any outward supply transaction आपने GSTR 1 में और 3B में दिखा दिया है, तो it will go to your table 4 or 5 of annual return. Any outward supply transaction GSTR 1 में तो आपने दिखा दिया है, but 3B में नहीं दिखाया है, एंड आपने उसको GSTR 3B के दिखा दिया है अप्रैल टू सितंबर में, देन इट विल गो इन योर टेबल 10-11. आउटवर्ड सप्लाई ट्रांजैक्शन GSTR 1 में नहीं दिखाया है, GSTR 3B में आपने 18-19 में दिखा दिया है, बट GSTR 1 में 19-20 में अप्रैल टू सितंबर में दिखा है, देन ऑल्सो इट विल फॉर्म पार्ट ऑफ योर टेबल 4-5, विल नॉट गो इन योर टेबल 10. Then next is 1 और 3B में 18-19 में नहीं दिखाया है, बट आपने अप्रैल टू सितंबर 19 में दिखा दिया 1 और 3 भी दोनों में, then also it will go in table 10-11. But this transaction is not reported anywhere in entire 18 month, then it will go to table 4-5. Next, Nitin bhai. Then transaction of financial year 18-19, amendment not done while filing return in the succeeding year. So suppose reported in the financial year, financial statement is 1 lakh, GSTR 1 में भी 1 लाख किया है, 3B में भी 1 लाख किया है. So all three are matching, then it will form part of your table 4 or table 5 as the case may be. एक्चुअल ट्रांजेक्शन 1 लाख है, बट 1 में आपने 90,000 दिखाया है, 3B में 1 लाख दिखाया है, तो ये टेबल 4 और 5 में जाएगा पूरा 1 लाख. एक्चुअल ट्रांजेक्शन आपका 1 लाख है, 1 में आपने 1 लाख दिखा दिया है और 90,000 ही आपने 3B में दिखाया है. So table 9 में tax liability be enhanced and discharged through GSTR 3B because GSTR DRC 3 because you have already paid tax on 90,000 instead of 1 lakh. Your actual transaction is only 90,000, but 1 में भी 1 लाख दिखा दिया है and 3B में भी 1 लाख दिखा दिया है. So as per press release issued on 3rd July, it says that you should disclose 90,000 and claim refund for the balance. That's what they have clarified. Next. The transaction of financial year 18-19 and amendment done while filing return of April to September. पहले टेबल में हमने अमेंडमेंट किया ही नहीं था, अब इसमें हमने अमेंडमेंट कर दिया है समझो. सो फाइनेंशियल ईयर में स्टेटमेंट में मेरा 1 लाख है, 18-19 में मैंने 90,000 ही डिस्क्लोज किया है एंड रिपोर्टेड इन GSTR 1 के 18-19 में मैंने 90,000 दिखाया है, बट 3B में मैंने 1 लाख दिखा दिया है, तो टेबल 10-11 में आ जाएगा. रिपोर्टेड इन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में मेरा 1 लाख है, 1 में मेरा 1 लाख है, बट 3B में 90,000 ही है, तो रिड्यूस टर्नओवर फ्रॉम टेबल 4 बाय INR 10,000 एंड रिपोर्ट इन टेबल 10 बिकॉज मैंने 10,000 जो है वहां पे लिया है 18-19 में, इसके लिए मेरा टेबल 10 में 10,000 जाएगा. Next. RCM, how to disclose transaction pertaining to financial year 17-18 paid not in 17-18 but paid in 18-19, so it will form part of table 4G of 18-19. Transaction pertaining to financial year 18-19, 17-18 में तो कुछ पेमेंट होगा ही नहीं. I have paid in 18-19 itself, then again it will go to 4G of 18-19. Transaction pertaining to financial year 18-19 but paid in financial year 19-20, it will form part of the financial year 19-20 table 4G of GSTR 9 and we presume that 19-20 में same अगर form होता है तो. Then transaction pertaining to financial year 18-19 not paid in 18-19 and not paid in 19-20 also. So it will go in the table of 4G in the year of payment itself. Next. So this what I have given example. You can read aram se. इसमें nothing to explain. Nitin bhai, you can skip this. This and next slide also. So now 9C में detail में नहीं जाते. Next. 9C में भी you have to start with your turnover of financial year से ही आपको लेना है. And in case of multiple GSTN, you have to take the turnover of that particular state for which you are doing audit. B, what you have to do is plus is unbilled revenue at the beginning of the financial year. What is unbilled revenue is your maybe a rent income, maybe a work contract service, or maybe accrued interest. So what you are disclosing maybe in your P&L, but it is not due to you. So suppose I have to issue a monthly invoice for doing any work contract supply. So I am issuing invoice on every 15th of the month. So मैंने 15th March को एक invoice issue किया है. Next invoice I am going to issue on 15th April. But I am doing some work from 15th March to 31st March. So in my books of account I am doing accruing that income, but that is not supply as far as GST is concerned. What I have to do is whatever the unbilled revenue is there at the beginning of the year, I will add into my P&L. And whatever unadjusted advances at the end of the financial year, I will also add here. Then deemed supply, what is deemed supply that you have to do? Credit note, trade discount, etc. You have to do. You know all this. What will come in this table. So I'm not going into detail. Next. And again, this table there is nothing to explain because you know which has to be disclosed where. So we'll skip this. Nitin bhai. They have given option of 5B and N, so I'm not going into detail. Then reconciliation of fine turnover declared in annual return. So all these exempt supply वगैरह ये सब यहाँ पे आपका plus minus करना है. So I'm not going into detail. Next. Next, Nitin bhai. So whatever I discussed today was my opinions or views, and opinions or views are like wristwatches. Every watch will different time from others, and everyone believes that their time is correct. So whatever I had discussed today was my opinions or views, and it may differ from faculty to faculty, author to author, or maybe court may take a different view. And again, what I have taken something a fact in my mind, if fact will change, then answer will also change. So once again, next slide. Thank you very much, CGPI, for giving me the opportunity. Next slide. For giving me opportunity. Next. So and thanks all the participants for patient hearing. Now I can take a question answer also. But before that, I'm regularly sending GST update. Those who are interested can follow me either on Twitter or can say my number and send me your full name and your city name. So I will add you in my broadcast list. WhatsApp as a feature that unless my number is saved in your mobile, it will not deliver a message. Thank you very much. So now we can stop sharing a screen and take up a question answer.
Yeah, Manish ji, thank you so much for such a detailed deliberation and that too taking care of the time limits. Extremely thankful to you. Now Nitin bhai will take the question and answers. Nitin bhai, over to you.
And I will again extremely sorry for technical difficulty at my end, and session has started delayed by 1 hour. And a special thank to Ranjan Bhai. He has helped me and to uh, sort out the issues. And now extremely sorry to all the participants that I have delayed by 1 hour. Yeah, Nitin bhai.
Yeah. Manish bhai, the first prominent question is key in respect of the export supplies. If person has not exported either under bond or under annuity, but the supplies export as per customs as well as the in respect of the services, it is a receipt of convertible foreign exchange. So will that trigger the GST liability to be paid by such person?
Okay. So Nitin bhai, what you said is that I have exported certain goods.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
And exported certain goods without payment of tax, and I have
Yes.
not taken the LUT. So whether it will be
Yes.
treated as export.
Yes.
My understanding is if you go to section 16 of IGST Act, there is two subsections, 16.1 and section 16.3. According to me, both are independent subsection. 16.1
Hello. Hello. Hello.
I think we just lost connection. He'll wait for 2 minutes. I think we'll join back. Yeah, he's back.
Yeah. So according to me, it will be export even if you are doing that. But if you are going to claim refund, then there will be a challenge.
So if the refund is not claimed, in that case, they don't have to pay the IGST?
That is view what I am holding.
Okay. Okay.
Different views are possible, Nitin bhai. Because
Okay.
whenever you are raising any question,
Hmm.
definitely multiple views are possible. So I will
Correct.
always discuss my views.
Okay. Okay. Next query that we have received is the how to calculate share trading turnover with reference to aggregate turnover.
As I said already discussed in my presentation that securities transactions are neither good nor supply nor services. Since it is
Hmm.
neither good nor services, it is not a supply. Since it is not a supply, it cannot be outward supply. टैक्सेबल और एग्जेम्प्ट कुछ भी नहीं हो सकता है, सप्लाई ही नहीं है, बिकॉज गुड्स ही नहीं है, सर्विस ही नहीं है, तो शुड
Hmm.
नॉट फॉर्म पार्ट ऑफ माई एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर एट ऑल. दैट इज
Okay.
व्हाट द व्यू आई एम होल्डिंग.
Okay.
अगर
So in that case,
बात ही नहीं कर रहा है तो कैसे कैलकुलेट करेंगे?
correct, correct. So,
So only
but
what they have given is Nitin bhai, what they did is only
hmm,
for the purpose of section rule 42, section 17(2) में rule 42 में for calculating reversal of ITC. They
hmm,
said that this is the method and it is deemed to be exempt supply
hmm,
trading in security. That is
hmm,
only and only restricted for the purpose of rule 42, that's section 17(2), but not for the purpose of aggregate turnover of section 2(6). So it will
uh,
not form part of calculating 5 crore limit, will not form part of calculating 5 crore limit.
so extending further, if I have a rental income from a residential property,
Hmm.
then what happens while determining the
Sir,
aggregate?
it is exempt supply
Huh,
and it will form part of your aggregate turnover. I have specifically covered that example also. Residential property, interest on loan, all this will be exempt supply. So what we have to understand is
hmm,
that first of all, what is important is whether it is a supply. Then supply may you can divide further to outward supply. Outward supply further you can say taxable supply or exempt supply. Correct? The
okay.
thing which is not a supply at all will
Hmm,
not form part of my aggregate turnover, according to me. So
okay.
first of all, that item should fit into a supply,
Hmm,
at least. Maybe either taxable supply, maybe either exempt supply, or maybe export supply. Then and
hmm.
then only it will form part of my aggregate turnover. That is what my view is.
Okay, the next query that we have received is the audit related service provided to a company having a multiple GSTN or corporate office, whether they should have as the compulsory or can they do cross charge in spite of not having any value addition done by the corporate office in this case.
See, Nitin bhai, what I am following in my office is it is always better to have a cross charge
Hmm,
because it is not possible, practically possible, even for the auditor and even for the auditee also to arrive at what value and etc. 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 So better to have a cross charge. And what we are doing in our office, what I can share is that in this kind of scenario, if full credit is available to the recipient branch, so monthly invoice you should raise of a cross charge, and in that you should cover each and everything, whatever best you can cover to avoid litigation in future. That is what the practically we are doing it.
okay, next query that we have received in respect of the export of supplies, the time limit is 270 days as per the FEMA provisions. But if that money is not received within 270 days, then what happens? Will it be treated as a uh, uh, supply, as if it is a domestic supply and the levies are payable by that the registered taxable person?
So you are talking about services or goods?
It is goods.
Okay. As far as export of goods are concerned, if you go to IGST Act or maybe CGST Act or any GST Act, so nowhere they have mentioned money to be received in convertible foreign exchange as far as goods are concerned. Now they have come out with a new controversy, saying in a circular saying that you will get a refund for export of goods once you received money in convertible foreign exchange. which is not the condition to treat this as export. So according to me, the circular what they are talking about is overriding the law. First of all, they have to amend the act to make it there that in case of goods also it is mandatory, like the services what they are saying is that it is mandatory to be treated as export, that money should be received in convertible forex. So I hope I am clear with my
Yeah,
answer.
yeah. Very much.
So whether I have received not received has no relevance. तो 270 दिन में लेना है कि नहीं लेना है, to treat this as export, that's what I am
Hmm.
talking. Refund is a separate ball game.
Okay, okay. I think Manish bhai, with this we have done with all our questions. Thanks for a very enlightened sessions. We have really enjoyed. Over to Sheel. Sheel?
Yeah, Manish ji, let me propose a very, what you say, well-deserved and a heartful and a grateful vote of thanks. Just allow me 2 minutes. Right? All of us present here are really enlightened with your knowledge and the depth of deliberations of your crisp and clear explanation of the law, and also coupled with your practical experiences on the procedural part as well. Your explanation of the topic was adept, and the presentation was a visual treat, which I'm sure everybody would preserve. It has built up our fundamental concepts on the subject and also has motivated us a lot. Manish bhai, on behalf of Team CGPI, I appreciate your passion and commitment towards the profession. For giving your precious time and genuine contribution on today's topic, I extend a very respectful word of thanks and express our gratitude to you. Manish bhai, please accept the same. Further, on behalf of Team CGPI, I equally thank the audience, especially the audience today, holding on with us, participating in this webinar in such large numbers and taking the benefit of learned speakers' contribution. I'm sure you will continue this learning, and we at CGPI remain committed to you to support you. Last but not the least, I acknowledge Team CGPI for hosting this webinar and their untiring and relentless efforts at the back end. Ranjan bhai, special thanks to you today. It wouldn't have been possible without you. Speakers, once again, we thank you from the bottom of our heart. With these words, we move towards the end of today's webinar. Take care and be safe.
Thank you very much. Thanks
Thank
to
you, Manish bhai.
CGPI.
I think we can end the event.